Let's talk about what separates winners from losers. Not in birth, not in luck, and not in talent. The difference begins in philosophy, not personality, not background, philosophy. It's what you decide to believe about life, about success, and about yourself. Winners make decisions, losers make excuses. It's not the circumstances that define your future, it's the choices you make in response to them. While one person says, "This is hard, I'll try anyway," the other says, "This is hard, so I quit." Same situation. Different mindset. One steps forward, the other steps back. One gets stronger, the other stays stuck. Winners make decisions, losers make excuses. That's not just a clever phrase, it's a principle that governs success and failure alike. At the core of every winner is a person who decided, who chose, who said, "This is my responsibility," and then backed that decision with consistent action. You see, it's not about being lucky or being born with a gift. It's about the power of a decision followed by ownership. And it's about refusing to let excuses dominate your life. We live in a world where it's easy to blame the economy, blame the government, blame the weather, blame our upbringing, even blame time itself. But blaming doesn't build anything. Winners know this. They don't spend time pointing fingers outward. They turn the finger inward and ask, "What can I do about this? How can I take control?" It's not always fair, but fairness isn't the goal. Growth is. Winners don't wait for ideal conditions. They begin where they are, with what they have. Winners understand that decision is the first step to transformation. You can't get to the top of a mountain by accident. No one drifts to success. You arrive because you chose a destination and took the journey. A decision is not just a wish or a hope. It's a commitment backed by action. Losers wish they were fit. Winners decide to train every morning, even when it's cold, even when it's raining. Losers hope for success. Winners plan for it. Winners wake up and say, "This is my path, and I will walk it no matter the resistance." Every step forward begins with the moment they decided to no longer be passive in their own story. Now let's talk about excuses. Excuses are lies we tell ourselves to avoid responsibility. They're comforting because they let us off the hook. But comfort doesn't produce greatness. Excuses feel good for a moment, but they steal your future. "I'm too tired. I don't have the time. No one helped me. I'm not smart enough." These are common phrases in the vocabulary of those who remain stuck. But every excuse has a hidden cost. The cost of the opportunity you didn't take, the skill you didn't learn, the life you didn't build. Winners see excuses as warning signs, red flags that they're about to surrender their power. They don't let excuses live in their mind rent-free. Instead, they challenge them. "I don't have time" becomes, "What am I prioritizing over my goals?" "I'm not good at this" becomes, "What can I learn to get better?" Where others see a wall, winners see a challenge. The difference isn't intelligence or strength. It's perspective. It's how they interpret difficulty. And it's not that winners never feel like quitting. They do. It's not that they don't hear the same inner voice whispering excuses. They hear it too. The difference is they don't obey it. They train themselves to rise above it. They've made a decision so deep, so clear, that the noise of excuses can't drown it out. That's the power of a true decision. It becomes louder than your doubts. Winners condition their minds to move, to act, to respond. When the average person hesitates, they take initiative. When others freeze in fear, they take the next step. Decision creates direction. Excuses create delay. Over time, that's the gap. That's the real difference. And the longer one stays in the habit of excuse making, the harder it becomes to break out. Habits harden, excuses become part of a person's identity if not confronted. Winners interrupt that cycle. They don't let a temporary setback become a permanent label. They fall, but they get back up. Because their decision wasn't based on convenience, it was based on commitment. You have to decide, are you going to run your life, or are you going to let circumstances run it for you? Winners choose to be the driver, even if the road is rough, even if the destination is far. They stay in the seat. Losers sit in the passenger side, pointing fingers at every bump, every turn, blaming the road, the weather, or the map. It all comes down to this. If you don't make a decision, life will make one for you. And life is not always kind to those who drift. But to those who decide, who commit, who move forward with discipline, the rewards are real. Not instant, but inevitable. Make your decision and protect it like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Discipline is the foundation that separates those who achieve from those who merely wish. Winners understand this deeply. They know that if you wait to feel right before taking action, you'll rarely act. Discipline is not about being in the mood. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Losers, on the other hand, live by their emotion. If they feel tired, they don't work. If they feel unmotivated, they delay. They let their emotions be the boss, and the results show it. Winners let discipline lead and let their emotions follow. You see, life doesn't reward you for how you feel, it rewards you for what you do. The student who studies consistently, even on the days when it's boring, ends up with the knowledge. The athlete who trains on the cold mornings when no one's watching ends up with the strength. The entrepreneur who shows up daily, even during failure, builds a business. None of these achievements are based on how someone felt. They're based on how someone decided. And that decision is enforced through discipline. There's a myth that successful people are always motivated. That's not true. They're just disciplined. They've built routines that carry them through the times when motivation fades. Discipline is like a muscle. You don't wake up one day with it fully developed. You train it, and the more you train, the stronger it gets. It's uncomfortable at first. Waking up early, saying no to distractions, staying focused when others are relaxing, that's not easy. But winners know that comfort is the enemy of progress. They've learned to be comfortable with discomfort. Losers live on the hope that they'll eventually feel like it. But feelings are unreliable. Some days you feel like a champion, other days you feel defeated. Winners act the same regardless of how they feel. They don't ignore emotions, they acknowledge them, but they don't let emotions make the decision. If the goal is important, then the work is non-negotiable. When you're disciplined with your health, you have the freedom of energy. When you're disciplined with your finances, you have the freedom of choice. When you're disciplined with your time, you have the freedom to pursue what matters most. Losers think discipline is restrictive. They think, I want to be free, I don't want to follow a strict schedule. But in avoiding structure, they end up in chaos. They lose time, they lose focus, and they lose opportunities. Discipline also teaches respect. Respect for your own word. When you say you'll do something and then follow through, you build confidence. You begin to trust yourself. Losers break their own promises. They say, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow turns into next week. Each time they do that, they weaken their belief in themselves. Winners are different. They may not always feel like showing up, but they've trained themselves to keep going. They've created habits that lead to consistency, and consistency leads to results. And it's not about being perfect. Even the most disciplined people have off days. But the difference is, they don't let one bad day become a bad week. They reset quickly. They bounce back fast. Winners have a rhythm, and when they break it, they return to it. That's the power of discipline. It creates momentum, and momentum multiplies effort. Discipline doesn't shout. It doesn't look flashy. It's not celebrated in the moment, but over time it becomes the quiet force behind every major success. People see the trophies, the promotions, the transformations, but they don't always see the early mornings, the quiet sacrifices, the disciplined choices made day after day. That's where winners separate themselves. Not in one big moment, but in hundreds of small ones. Or when you look at someone successful, don't assume they got there because they were lucky or naturally talented. Look deeper. Look at how they've mastered the art of doing what needs to be done regardless of how they feel. That's what discipline is. And that's what keeps winners moving forward while others fall behind. Winners learn, grow, and apply. That's a cycle they repeat continuously. They don't stop at learning, and they don't just gather information for the sake of sounding intelligent. They seek knowledge with the intent to use it. That's the difference. Losers often confuse knowing with doing. They might read the same books, watch the same seminars, listen to the same advice, but they never move beyond theory. Winners make learning a foundation, growth a requirement, and action the final step. In every field, business, relationships, health, or finance. Knowledge is the entry point, not the destination. Winners are students of life. They understand that they are never workshops, they highlight passages in books, they take pages of notes, but when it comes time to step into discomfort and apply it, they freeze. They say things like, "I already know that," or "I've heard that before." Yet their life doesn't reflect it, because knowing is not enough. Knowing must lead to doing. Hitler's shop is where growth lives. You can read about leadership all day, but until you have that difficult conversation, you're not leading. You can study fitness routines endlessly, but until you lace up your shoes and start moving, nothing changes. Winners act on their learning. They test, they experiment, they fail, and then they adjust. Learning without application is mental clutter. Action turns it into wisdom. Another trait of winners is their ability to turn mistakes into lessons. Every misstep is feedback. Instead of being crushed by failure, they ask, "What did I miss? What can I do better next time?" That's learning in motion. That's growth under pressure. Losers often see mistakes as confirmation that they're not good enough. They give up. They avoid trying again. But winners embrace the messiness of learning. They are not embarrassed by falling short. They are energized by the opportunity to improve. Growth requires effort. It's not automatic. Winners are intentional about surrounding themselves with ideas and people that challenge them. They choose environments that stretch them, not just comfort them. They seek mentors. They accept feedback. They understand that comfort zones are prisons for potential. Growth demands exposure to discomfort, and winners willingly step into that space. And there's another layer. Winners apply what they learn across all areas of life. A principle they learn in one place gets tested in another. If they learn discipline in the gym, they bring it to their business. If they learn patience in parenting, they carry it into leadership. They live interconnected lives. Losers tend to compartmentalize learning. They keep personal growth separate from professional life. But winners understand that success is holistic. What you do anywhere shows up everywhere. The reason winners stay ahead isn't because they know more. It's because they do more with what they know. They stay teachable. They never arrive. Every day is another opportunity to ask, what can I learn? And more importantly, how can I use it today? That attitude compounds over time. What begins as a single insight, when applied consistently, becomes transformation. So the next time you learn something new, ask yourself the winning question: how will I apply this today? Because that's what sets winners apart. Not just that they learn, not just that they grow, but that they move decisively and consistently in the direction of that knowledge. And over time, that commitment to learning, growing, and applying makes all the difference. Winners keep going. That's the simplest way to explain what separates them from everyone else. It's not that they never fall, never fail, or never face doubt. They do, often. But what defines them is what they do after the fall. They get back up. They adjust. They adapt. They stay in motion. Persistence is their power. Losers often have the same dreams, the same initial passion, and even the same resources. The difference shows up over time, when things get hard, when it takes longer than expected, when no one is clapping. That's when winners keep going and losers stop. The path to success is rarely straight. It twists, it tests, and it delays. Winners accept that. They don't expect the journey to be easy. They expect challenges, setbacks, and obstacles, and they prepare their mindset accordingly. That's why when the storm comes, they're not surprised. They bend, but they don't break. They keep moving through the process. Losers, on the other hand, tend to see every obstacle as a reason to stop. They take resistance as a signal to turn back. But winners interpret resistance differently. To them, resistance is a sign that they're moving in the right direction. If there's no challenge, there's probably no growth. Winners understand that results take time. There is a gap between planting and harvesting. You can't sow a seed today and expect fruit tomorrow. That's not how life works. But losers are often addicted to instant gratification. If they don't see immediate results, they assume something is wrong. They say, "This isn't working," and they quit too soon. Winners have patience, not passive patience, but active, working patience. They show up every day even when progress is invisible. They trust the process and continue to act in faith. And when failure comes, and it will, winners don't see it as the end. They see it as feedback. They learn, adjust, and continue. Failure is not a full stop, it's a comma. Losers take failure personally. They see it as proof that they're not good enough. They internalize it. Winners separate the failure from their identity. Just because something didn't work doesn't mean they are a failure. They extract the lesson, then they move forward smarter and stronger. Every time they fall, they build more resilience. Winners are not immune to emotions. They feel frustrated. They feel discouraged, but they've trained themselves to keep going anyway. Their commitment is stronger than their mood. They've built emotional endurance. That's why they last. They don't rely on external motivation. If the applause stops, if the recognition fades, they still continue. They're not driven by attention, driven by purpose. That inner purpose is what pulls them through the valleys. Persister also means doing the work even when it's boring. Success isn't made of exciting moments strung together. It's made of repetition. The champion boxer throws the same punch thousands of times. The great writer rewrites the same paragraph until it flows. The successful business person sends email after email, makes call after call. It's the repetition of consistent effort that creates excellence. Losers get bored with the process. They chase excitement. But winners fall in love with the routine. They find pride in the practice. And another trait of persistence is the ability to block out noise. When you're on the path to something meaningful, people will doubt you. They'll question your decisions. They'll say it's taking too long, or you're wasting your time. Losers listen to the crowd. Winners listen to their conviction. They don't let external opinions decide their internal direction. They stay loyal to the vision, even when no one else understands it. They know that their journey is their responsibility. Winners also adapt. Persistence doesn't mean doing the same thing blindly. It means continuing the mission, even if the method changes. If one approach doesn't work, they try another. They stay flexible, but they don't quit. They look at obstacles and ask, what's another way? While losers say, this can't be done. That adaptability is part of their staying power. They're not rigid. They're creative under pressure. One of the most important things about persistence is that it builds identity. Every time you push through a hard moment, you reinforce the belief that you are a finisher, that you are someone who follows through. That belief compounds. You begin to see yourself differently, not as someone who tries, but as someone who does. Losers see themselves as starters. Winners see themselves as closers. And that self-pivot drives behavior. Persistence also means staying focused. The world is full of distractions, new opportunities, easier options, shiny temptations. Losers jump from one thing to another, never giving enough time to succeed at any of them. They start a business, then chase a new idea. They join a program, then abandon it for something else. They live in a cycle of starting over. Winners stay the course. They're not seduced by shortcuts. They pick a path, and they walk it until results come. There's also a spiritual strength in persistence. You develop inner peace, knowing that no matter what happens, you won't give up on yourself. That mindset changes the way you carry yourself. It changes how others see you. People respect someone who doesn't quit, who stays the course, who keeps their word, even when it's hard. That kind of person becomes unstoppable, not because life gets easier, but because they've become stronger. And let's be clear, persistence is available to everyone. It doesn't require talent, education, or a perfect background. It only requires decision and discipline. Anyone can choose to keep going. Anyone can decide to keep showing up. That's the invitation of life. To rise when it's hard, to keep going when it's slow, to finish when most people stop. So the next time you feel tired, when the results are delayed, when the path seems lonely, remember this. Winners aren't faster, luckier, or smarter. They're just more consistent. They keep going. And eventually they arrive, because persistence always wins. In the end, what separates winners from losers is not some hidden talent, lucky break, or secret strategy. It's mindset. It's how they think, how they respond, and how they follow through. Winners take full responsibility for their lives. They don't wait for ideal conditions or blame external forces. They discipline themselves to take consistent action, even when motivation fades. They are relentless learners who apply what they know, turning knowledge into power. And above all, they keep going, when it's hard, when it's slow, when it's lonely. That's the quiet difference. Not one grand gesture, but 1,000 small, intentional choices made day after day. So if you're wondering what it takes to become a winner, it's not out there somewhere. It's right here, in your habits, in your decisions, and in your refusal to give up. Winners aren't born. They are built by choice, by action, and by persistence. And you can become one if you decide.